Okay, you get the idea. Okay, welcome everyone. Pleasure to see you. My name is Dr. Jet, and together with Dorothy and Cultural Affairs, we're presenting a series this semester on local birds and their travels. And also, welcome to all of those who might be joining from the Orange County Audubon Society, from the Bashikill Area Association, and all of our other great wildlife organizations. And we have the Mearns Bird Club, we have um, Audubon societies in Sullivan, Pike counties. So welcome to everyone. And if you don't know anything about the organizations that I just mentioned, and you say, "Oh, this was kind of fun, and I like going out and hiking in nature, or I like wildlife." Well, Orange County is full of organizations, full of people just like you. And if you'd like to sign up, I have a sign up chart for the BKA, the Bashikill Area Association, and the Orange County Audubon Society. If you'd like to be put on their mailing list, once a month they'll send you, here's the events which are going on, here's some talks and walks, etc. There's calendars too, we can talk about later. But in any case, we would love to see you at events and walks, and if you'd like to get out and meet with people, of your ilk, who enjoy nature as well, by all means. And today, the topic is birds of spring and summer, following up with last week's fall and winter. And um, next week is the last of the series that's a talk. It will be on the environmental problems which birds face. Tragically, in my lifetime, North America has lost at least 1 in 4 of its birds. At least a quarter of its birds are gone. And a friend of mine and I were just talking that migrations, they just aren't what they used to be. I mean, just I remember, 15, 20 years ago, just I'm not seeing the same number of birds. And so if you're here, and I hope you enjoy this talk, but this is an important talk. We're losing our birds, and if birds are to, last, they depend on people like you who care, and then so it's wonderful to see you here. So come spring, things will change. Now, spring kind of happens in a couple of waves. First of all, spring is also a time to lose birds. So over the winter, I hope to, start seeing more and more of these in Orange County. The snow geese, and you're like, this is the only time of year to see them. But as we start getting to March, they have places to go. I mean, this is where they're going to lay their eggs up here in their breeding range. So while they may be here all winter, we'll be leaving them. So, in March, when you're thinking, oh, I'm excited, I might start seeing my songbirds, we're also then seeing the last of our winter birds. Oh, we got plenty of chairs here. Feel free to drag them. Um, and so 2 years ago, I actually had a trail camera up. And if you look in the middle of the lake, these are actually the snow geese. They just left the Pine Island area. They spent the night in Goshen. And then that was the very morning that they took off to head up to northern Canada. So spring starts as we say goodbye to some of our winter birds and start to say hello to our summer birds. Now, because the title of this series is the birds and their travels, I wanted to just kind of focus on their travels first, because before we get to see our warm weather birds in, like March and April, maybe you desire to travel, especially students who have spring break, and maybe, you say like, oh, Florida isn't doable, or maybe even the Virgin Islands, they're it's easy to get to them. So here is a bird which some of you may recognize, and you may say, oh, yellow warblers, I see them all the time in wetlands here in Orange County. This is one of our birds, and it is. But this is taken in the Virgin Islands. All right. And if you ask, why is it in the Virgin Islands? And that's because it is our bird, come June and July and August. But it isn't here in the warmer months because obviously you're not going to find many insects at that time. So, Orange County birds, we depend on the Virgin Islands and Colombia and Guatemala and Georgia, because our birds need a place to stay. We should have some extra chairs. We have at least 3. Feel free to drag them wherever you want. And so You could actually get to see our summer birds if you decided to take a spring break trip in March and go a little farther south. Last year, I was lucky to do just that, and I went to the Everglades. I'm just going to pull up uh, a couple of videos here. And you may think of the phoebe with its call of Phoebe. Phoebe is a sign of spring. And that is a sign, once we get into, April, May here. But in March, here it is in the Everglades where it spent the winter. So we depend on the Everglades, all right? We don't get our birds unless they provide habitat for them. And the likewise, we will see great crested flycatchers here over the summer, but here they are in the Everglades before coming north. Right, so they spent the winter in their non-breeding range. One of our first warblers in Orange County is the yellow-rumped warbler. All right, but here is, I think, a juvenile starting to molt in its courting its breeding plumage. It looks a little scruffy um, there. And so uh, our birds are currently enjoying warmer weather. But if we care about birds, this is a theme that has worked throughout the series so far and tonight as well. We depend on other areas, just as Canada will depend on us, as we're going to get to in just a second. So yellow-rumped warblers and this species, the palm warbler, they're the two first warblers which we're going to see. But here they are in the Everglades. Before they get here, they spend there. So saving birds and saving wildlife, it's not only something that we require the whole United States for, but also North America, Canada, Virgin Islands, Dominican Republic, Cuba, and then Colombia, et cetera. So it's really a whole hemispheric issue. Okay. So what to look for in spring? Well, spring is a long season, as is migration. It's not one time period where everyone starts to come north. So let's just kind of start early spring. All right. And by early spring, this could be even like late February going into March. We see eagles in Orange County, and we wonder, are these the eagles that are going to spend the summer here, or are these Canada's eagles? It could go either way. So we're not sure whether our eagles are in Georgia or some of our eagles have decided to stay here. But you might actually get to see them court. All right. Now, courtship, I apologize. I do have to do like safety lectures here and there. So please, what I'm about to say, don't try at home. Good. Okay. So courtship for bald eagles involves both couples or both in the couple going really high in the air, locking talons, and then hurtling towards the ground only right before the moment to let go and go free. So please do not try this at home. A bit dangerous, even for some eagles. Every now and then there'll be eagles found dead that apparently didn't break away quite at the right moment. So please do not try that at home. But so that's something that in late March you might start to observe. They do mate for life, but they do try to reinforce their bonds by stroking each other's bills, their head, their neck with their bills. Bald eagle bills are really big, actually, and that actually might be one of the things that's involved. That it's involved in their courtship. They do a lot of touching with their bills, and so the larger bills might actually have a role in that. So come February, especially if it's a warm winter, you might see couples starting to return here and then repair nests where they're going to get fresh vegetation, fresh branches, and start to build these nests up once again. Now, usually what happens is the female, who's much larger, sits in the nest and kind of like tests the male, all right, to see what kind of branches you're going to bring me. And very often, branches not quite up to her, her standards, and she'll toss it aside, and the male then has to bring her other branches. So you may watch some of that. But these eagle nests, they are used year after year until very often they just get too heavy for the tree. And actually, they, break the branches that they're on or maybe even collapse the trees. All right. So we'll be seeing bald eagles. And in a warm winter, maybe by the end of February that's happening, but certainly by March. Now, at the Bashakil, which has had the privilege of having bald eagle nest, just such a long string for decades now. We've been having issues. All right. So there are places you can go to view bald eagles all winter. So the Delaware River at the Roebling Bridge in Lackawaxen, great place no matter how cold it gets. The Rio Dam, same to be said, the Hudson River. So even in the cold of winter when lakes are frozen, you can see eagles all throughout Orange County. We're lucky, and for you young people, I'm sure you're sick of hearing like old people say like in my day. Well, I couldn't see all eagles when I was your age. There were like virtually none east of the Mississippi River. So like if you wanted to see an eagle, you were just out of luck. All right, there was just you couldn't go anywhere. And here, even in winter, you can go and say, "Oh, look, I saw three eagles today, even in winter." Come March, they're coming back, but see, we don't understand what's going on at the Bashkill. For a while, we had an eagle's nest right by the parking lot, and we have volunteers all summer or for 6 weeks in spring and early summer with a spotting scope. If you want to stop by, someone will say, "Hey, you want to see an eagle's nest through the spotting scope? Look at the eaglets; they're getting a little bigger than they were last time. Look at them spreading their wings." We love that. However, it was such a popular place for bald eagles nest that then we had two nests, and then we had three nests, like within a mile and a half, and that's too many eagles in too little space, and they think so too. So they started attacking each other, and some of the adults then killed the eaglets in some of the rival nests. Last year, while there were three nests that adults were sitting on, so we were hoping to have at least 6 to 9 eaglets, we had one after some eagle aggression. And then this year we actually had none. There were three eagles' nests, all raring to go. So when do you start seeing eagles? That actually might play into it. Like if that's going on and you're kind of in this warfare with your neighbors, the sooner you start your nest, maybe that gives you an advantage over your neighbors. So all of these things are going to play into things like this. Most people will never see a woodcock. All right, they tend to come out at night. All right. However, and I know, yeah, that sound. I'll stop talking in a second. I swear. I swear. So that's a spring thing. All right. You will never see these birds ever. But as males start courting females, they'll do this thing where they fly in the air and they make a spectacle of themselves, and they just sit on the ground going pink, pink, pink right around dusk. And so there's walks that Audubon leads in Middletown this year. I think they heard them but didn't see them. Usually you see them. But once again, if you're looking on your calendar saying like, oh, it's the end of February, March is starting, you might then look around and say, who's giving the woodcock walk? All right, because this is the only time of year that you're going to see them. So as people start looking for like, what do I see in spring? There's some things going on there. Okay. Then the waterfowl start. Now, waterfowl, and so I'm going to do my best with this. This is like the awkward part of the presentation, because at some point you have to start talking about how birds date. All right, and I'm sure everyone in this room you have opinions on like dating and what's good and what's bad. So there may feel free to cast some judgment at some of these birds. So springtime is the time that they're, picking partners and preparing for the next generation. So what does that look like? Well, it varies like who you're talking about. So let's just swans versus ducks. They're different. Now, one of the things which is interesting is you look at ducks and you say, or you look at swans and you're like, which is the male, which is the female? I mean, you can figure it out, but it's hard because they look almost identical. And the minute you say that, you're like, aha, that means something. I'll bet that they're both going to raise the young. I'll bet you the males stay, all right, because they look so much alike. Oh, and I'll bet you they mate for life. And if you see waterfowl where males and females look alike, bet money on that because that's almost always the case. That one, the males are going to help raise the young, and that they mate for life. You look at the ducks and you're like, ooh, I can really tell the difference between the males and females, and place all your money on the opposite one. You say that like the males, they're going to be gone the minute, even probably before the eggs hatch, and next season they'll have different partners. So what does spring courtship, et cetera, look like? Well, it varies. All right. Each of these species then has like its own way of forming um, forming partnerships. So, so the swans will be returning. Some of them actually might still have their young with them. So the young that were raised with the swans this year might actually come back with their parents. But then all of a sudden, the parents start being really mean. So the parents who have loved and cared for these, young swans, cygnets is the word, for as long as they can remember, all of a sudden turn on them and force them away because now they're getting ready for the next generation. Canada geese also mate for life, and come spring, all right, they're going to start, their courtships. So as you look, you might see them like lowering their heads and chasing each other around. So that may be males chasing out other males, or males trying to court females, but you see them hissing at each other. So if you observe waterfowl, there's all of this dynamic going on. A lot of them have already picked partners in their winter range, and they come here already paired up. Of the ones who haven't, this is kind of their last ditch. If they don't get a mate, they're going to go this year without a mate. Now, for males, this is a bit tough because males outnumber females in the waterfowl. All right, and so not all males are going to have a partner. If you ask why that is, no one says this is the answer. Here are the two that I think. One is, especially among the ducks, the females do all the childcare. Now, childcare for a duck is not as hard as it is for a songbird because baby ducks are pretty independent. They can like find their own duckweed, as opposed to songbirds where the only way they eat is if the parents bring them food. So it's a little easier to raise ducks than it is songbirds. But still, that's a lot of extra burden on the females that the males don't share. So, that could be extra exposure to predation. So that could be a reason there are fewer females. Also, a reason, however, just a little biology, is at conception in humans, males outnumber females by a lot. Like for every 100 female embryos, there's like 130 males. So a lot more males are conceived than females. When it comes to birth, males still outnumber females, but by about 108 to 100. All right, so it's going down. By the time you reach teenage years, it's about a 1-to-1 ratio. And if you ask, why is that? The answer is our chromosomes. Females have two long chromosomes with plenty of genes. Males have a short one. And so if there's a mistake on the long one, males don't have a second good copy to compensate it. So most miscarriages are male, most infant deaths are male. In birds, the chromosome thing is the opposite. It's the females that have two different sized ones, and it's the males who have the same. So just like males suffer from more genetic diseases than females do in humans and mammals, that might play in birds as well. Okay, so in any case, as they come back, there's going to be competition. Once again, males outnumber females, and not all males will get a mate. Now, mallards have a whole lot of courtship displays. So if you watch mallards, I know you're familiar with them, but you might see them acting in ways you don't normally see as they're performing all of their courtship rituals. And once again, I try to say this without judgment. You can judge however you want. Male mallards will try to mate with almost anything. And so they do have their partners. They will certainly try to mate with other partners as well. And so that's an interesting question when we say, oh, these birds mate for life or they have a partner for the season. But very often, if you do genetic analyses of the nestlings, you say, oh, there's mixed parentage here. All right. And so, mating for life may be true, but, there may be a few other dynamics going on in bird relationships as well. And mallards are famous for forming hybrids with other species. Black ducks would be the big one, but like they'll mate with other species, and a number of hybrids can be born. This is an exciting time. This is a theme that'll work its way in because look at that head of that mallard. If they weren't so common, I think we'd appreciate mallards more. Like bright green, not a lot of our birds are bright green. Like they're pretty unique in that, but we see them all the time, so I think we take it for granted. So this is special, and spring is their time to be in the showing off their breeding plumage, not the females, all right? Because the females, if they're going to be the only ones raising the young, they don't want to stand out. They don't want, predators to say, "Oh, look at those bright colored birds." So look at the females. They're going to blend in really well. Oh, and I mentioned black ducks a second ago that mallards can mate with them and hybridize. So there's actually a few black ducks in. Ah, they were right there. I swear. Yeah, there's some black ducks in the background there. So, oh, there's one right there. Um, so these females are going to camouflage. They're not trying to be showy because they're going to protect the young. If they were brightly colored, then more predators would find them and their young. Now, something that I'll say with the other uh, birds as well. These colors are a way for the females to judge the male. All right. So that if you were to take a male and like put some like paint or something on its bright green head, females wouldn't choose it as well. Like they want a nicely colored male. Because that's a reflection of health. Healthy males make brighter feathers. And so females can actually judge the health of a male. So if females have choices and say, "Oh, I got a whole bunch of males courting me. I could go for that one, that one, that one." They can kind of say, "Oh, that one's healthier than that one." All right, and they can use that then as their gauge. And we'll get into that as well. Right. So here is a male mute swan, kind of enforcing its territory, and it chases away Canada geese, etc. And if you wonder why, we'll get into this. Like birds, like waterfowl, their nests are on the ground. And so at a certain point, a lot of them are like, "Hey, if you're in my area, get away," because there are lots of things. I mean, you like eating birds' eggs, I'm sure. A lot of things in nature do. All right. And so that swan will chase away ducks and will chase away geese. But here, oh, here we go. There are ducks you probably know, like mallards, Canada geese, even the mute swans. They will spend all summer here. But then there are other species where you can only see them in spring and fall. They don't spend their winters here, and they don't lay eggs here. They don't breed here. These are Canada's birds, or like Maine's birds. They are migrating north of us. And so, a mistake, and I always say this, that I made when I was younger, is I said, "Oh, it's March. I don't want to go bird watching in March. I'm going to wait till May when it's warm." But then by May, I had missed so many species. There are so many species. By May, they are laying eggs in Hudson Bay or the Great Lakes or whatever. So come early spring, all right, go out birding because there are birds that you will only see at that time, like these ring-necked ducks. Now, like it's not a great name. Now I got lucky this day because like bright sunshine on them. You can see they have a ring around their neck that's kind of maroon. You almost never see that. So you see the ring on their bill. All right, better, a lot better than that. These are deep water ducks and they like to dive. And so if you're going to go bird watching, go to different habitats. So if you go to shallow water, you'll see a lot of ducks which dabble. They just kind of upend themselves. But if you go to deeper water, like a deeper lake, you say, "Oh, look, I'm seeing a whole bunch of ducks here that I didn't see elsewhere." So once again, this is a springtime thing. They're going to adorn our lakes, but they are just resting here shortly before they take off again to go to upstate New York, New England, and Canada, because they breed north of us. Okay. So I'm just hitting lots of different stories. So wood ducks will spend their summers here. And here you see a female wood duck. Once again, not as showy as the male because she doesn't want to attract attention. She's got the responsibility of keeping all of these things safe. I mean, who knows where the male is? And so she wants to blend in. And you say that's a big family. However, they may not all be hers. So all of these species, there's all of these different stories to tell. Some birds, they like to nest in holes or cavities. And the reason for that is protection from predators. So that's great. Problem, there aren't that many holes, especially since we people have like cut down all the big trees. Like in the old days, there used to be a lot more just dead trees around. We tend to cut these down. So if you're a bird species that likes to nest in holes, like bluebirds or tree swallows or wood ducks or wrens or many others, finding them is a tough thing. So let's say you find a hole and you lay your eggs. All right. And then like, let's say you're feeling good, kind of healthy, and you're saying, I think I still have a few eggs left in me. What are you going to do? You find the hole of someone else in your area, another wood duck, and you lay your eggs in her uh, nesting cavity. And so wood ducks can have dozens of ducklings following them. I'm sorry, I think I got a little background noise going on here. So let me just kind of, um, it's called intraspecific brood parasitism, where females will get other females to raise their young. Now, I know that you might have a reaction against this, but it's a little complicated because there's only so many holes. And so, in an area. And so when these ducks grow up, half of them probably female, give or take, they tend to return to the place where they grew. But there's only so many cavities in an area. So now you're competing with other wood ducks, but some of them might be your mother or your sisters or your cousins. And so even though it's a little weird that some females are raising the ducklings of others, they might be related to varying degrees. So it's not quite as weird. It's still the success of the family um, going on. But anyway, so these start to come out, but the timing varies. So Canada geese, they hatch earlier than swans do because swans are bigger. All right. Ducks may hatch even earlier. And so if you look at when do we see, the ducklings, the goslings, et cetera, it may vary throughout the spring. And of course, this is going on all over. All right. So red hawk nests are not as big as the bald eagle nests are, but you can see two adults here. Now, very often, uh, raising a baby bird takes two. So ducks are kind of unusual because, like, once a duckling is hatched, there's duckweed right there. The adults don't need to feed it. In fact, just I'm impressed by wood ducks especially. So when wood ducks hatch, this is their first day of life in the world. What do? Well, a lot of them are in a cavity, maybe in a tree, maybe 40 to 60 feet in the air. So a wood duckling's first day of life includes going to the opening of the nest cavity, jumping 40 to 60 feet. For some of them, depends on how high the cavity is, before they can start eating in the pond. So, that's a pretty ambitious first day of life. Most birds are not like that at all. Most birds need extended care before they're capable of anything. And so it takes both parents. And so you'll see like one parent eagle, one parent hawk spending time on the nest while the other is bringing food. All right. And so you can see it takes varying amounts of time to sit on the eggs and keep them warm. So the parents may incubate the eggs for a month. And then the next question is, how long does it take to fledge? How long before flight feathers develop that the young are able to leave the nest? So you can see, if it's going to take you a month before the eggs hatch, 6 to 7 weeks to fledge, very often the kids aren't good at hunting yet. So they're going to be teenagers and kind of hang out their parents a little bit, like still independent, but still, getting some help as well. Obviously, springtime has to be the time to start this because if winter comes early, like you want your young to be grown and capable of fending for themselves by that point. If you get a really good brood early in spring, some birds will try a second brood in summer, but that's not typical. Most birds, it's a one-shot thing, and spring is the time to start because then by summer, uh, then they're going. So okay. So bird watchers love warblers. All right, so that's one of our favorites. Yes, Dorothy.
Uh, since the wood duck jumps out or they're pushed out, are they capable of flying?
No, well, no, they were just covered in down, so just fluffy. But because they're so small and light, if like they spread their wings, like I think they don't drop like a stone. I think like they kind of, but no, they have no ability to fly. They just kind of, yeah, go down. So birders love or warblers, but and if you're a beginning birder, maybe one of the things that's deterring you from really jumping in is there's just so many of them. Like, and how do you tell the difference? Well, there are secrets, okay? And in spring, one of the secrets is if this is April, there's two warblers to look at. They're going to come far before the other ones. So migration isn't one thing where like all species are coming through. It's like, oh, here we are, second week of April, they're all here. You're going to see some early April, some, beginning of May, etc. So palm warblers, bet money, those on the yellow rump, they're going to be the first warblers that you see this year. And they act a little different, spending a lot of time on the ground, which is atypical for warblers. So, if you're slowly getting into bird watching and you're saying, I'm a little intimidated by just the number of species, just if you know the time of the year, you can say, all right, well, there's the ones I'm expecting to see. And, there's different things that different ways that they act. Now, not to be disrespectful, but there is the nickname that they have. So yellow rump warblers, butterbutt is the name that they go by. Just so don't, if you call them that, you are not the only one, so it's all okay. And this is spring is a special time for warblers because the last of the yellow rumps just went through a couple of weeks ago. Like 2 weeks ago, I saw one at at the Liberty Loop Trail. But the males don't look like this. Like it's striking, nice slate gray color, like bright yellow here. That's the breeding plumage that males adopt when they're trying to impress females. A lot of the males, they're not trying to impress the females now because the females aren't interested in mating or laying eggs. And being brightly colored then is only going to attract predators. All right. So a lot of males are kind of boring in fall. So autumn doesn't quite have, some of the excitement that it does in spring. And it's just so much easier to distinguish birds in spring. And so you might say, aha, in autumn, these males don't look as bright as this. They're much more muted. They look a lot like the females, which are good at camouflaging them. So here's the female yellow rump warbler, not as bright here. Another advantage in spring is, not to complain, but sometimes it's nice when things are easy. In spring, it's easy. You got males and you got females, and often the males are at their brightest coloration, so it's easy to tell the difference. In autumn, not only do the males look like the females, very commonly in birds, but now you got the juveniles that hatch this year, the teenagers, and the teenagers often look different from the adults. So if you're trying to learn your birds, you got males and females, which are duller, and then you got juvenile males and females, which may look different. So autumn bird watching sometimes is a little more challenging than the spring bird watching. But then another thing about spring is, you just get the colors. Like, oh, look, there's the Parula warbler with the mossy green, but just so many colors. And this is not our bird. All right, this is a Canada bird. All right, this is an upstate New York bird. So we see them in transit. So once again, if you like, it's still cold, late April, I'm going to wait till end of May, I'll go out birding. You missed them. All right. So they want to be laying their eggs in Canada by then. And so there are just so many birds that you can only see during migration. And so each season has its story to tell. And this is when they're at their brightest, because this is when the females are choosing which of the males they want to partner with. So that's a female redstart. The male redstarts have earned them the term the Halloween bird. All right, and you can see why, the bright black and orange. And just a comment on orange. So what I'm going to say is true of orange, but it's also true of yellow and red. All right, birds don't make orange colors. All right, they don't make red colors. They don't make yellow colors. They eat them. All right. So when we look outside at the plants, we see yellow leaves, we see red berries, we see orange berries. Clearly, plants have pigments which we call carotenoids that give us yellows and reds and oranges. Autumn is a wonderful time to see that plants have these colors. Well, birds eat those plants. And then birds, when they make new feathers, could then take those pigments that they ate and put them in their feathers. So that's how they get the reds, the yellows, and the oranges. But now females use that because now they get a window on how well the male is eating. All right. The male isn't orange unless it's been eating a lot of orange plants. So males that are well fed, all right, look brighter than the males that aren't. And once again, this is a time where all these males are calling, which we'll why not say now. So um, in addition to the colors, they're going to make calls because. So this is true of all of these birds. It's true of the ducks, of the warblers. And some of you have, I have like, you know, 3 or 4 jokes in routine. So if this is a repeat, you've heard some of these before. But just to kind of warm up, let's say that, we tend to wrap up around 6:30. Let's say that, after 6:30, you say like, I'm still in the mood to, talk about birds. And so like a bunch of you go, to a restaurant, you continue your bird talks, there or whatever. Let's say you get to talking with someone and you say, oh, this seemed kind of interesting. And we talk maybe about going out to dinner or a movie. And before you go on a date, all right, does anyone ever have to like stop themselves and say, wait, am I sure that this is a member of my species? All right, has anyone gone through that? Couple, no? All right, well, if you're laughing like this is silly, that's because we're unusual. While there were other species of human alive not all that long ago, there was Homo erectus, there was Neanderthals. And so our ancestors did have to say, I know that's human, but I don't know if it's my human. I don't know if it's my species. That might be the other species. And they had to kind of, decide when picking a partner, where their boundaries were. Humans don't have to do that anymore, but these birds do. There's an awful lot of little yellow warblers. There's an awful lot of little brown sparrows or ducks, etc. And so females have a choice. All right. There might be 12 species of duck on a lake at a time. And if the females want to have sex, they might pick the wrong species. So that's another reason for all of these colors and for all of these songs. All right. If you mate with the wrong individual, well, odds are your eggs aren't going to hatch. Odds are you defended a territory and you will have no progeny that season. So you've wasted your reproductive energies. So to avoid that, just make sure your partner is your species. And so there's all of these different coloration patterns. Like this species of warbler is black and white. This species of warbler, the prairie has, black stripes on its yellow throat. This species has this species has this. And they're all making different sounds. The yellow warbler is saying, sweet, 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 I'm so sweet. Is this actually? Okay.
The more common birds, the more common warblers, especially.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I'll have sounds going. So the yellow warblers are saying sweet, 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 I'm so sweet. The yellow throats are saying witchity, witchity, witchity. The black-throated blues are saying zween, zween, zween. And we humans tell them apart that way, like, ooh, there's a yellow throat warbler here, or the app on your phone, Merlin, can tell them apart. But the females tell them apart. They're saying, like, I want to have sex because it's time to lay eggs. This is the only time of year where we do this. All right. And there's all of these birds calling, and you're like, oop, wrong species, wrong species. That's the right one. All right. So this is also a great time to go birding because in summer, like the leaves are out. So a bird that likes the tops of trees, you're not going to see them. All right. And they don't want to see you. They want to eat their bugs and they don't want to attract attention of predators. But now look at that. This male is sitting all by itself on a bare branch, brightly colored, making as much noise as he possibly can because he's trying to attract the females. So if you want to get into birding, spring is a great time to do that because you've got no leaves at the beginning. You've got males at their brightest colors trying to make spectacles of themselves, trying to be loud, trying to be visible. So great time to go birding. Now, some birds are kind of drab colored, but always singing. So there's a bunch of those too. So there are a bunch of birds, like if you're using your phone app, you're like, oh, there's another red-eyed vireo, or there's a warbling vireo. I'm not hearing those. But they're not quite as showy. They're not going to stand on the branch all by themselves. And so that's another whole set where we hear a lot of birds that we don't quite see. It's called a red-eyed vireo because they make a red pigment in their eye. They have a cousin called a warbling vireo. Once again, kind of drab, but you're going to hear them constantly. All right. And so, spring birding isn't just about the sights. It's also about the sounds. Okay. And then just kind of going, I guess, just at random, there's so many stories to tell. I love this duck. All right, look at that snout. It's called the shoveler, or you can see why with the bill. But once again, this is a migrant. All right, if you don't see it in spring, you're just not going to see it till autumn. And in autumn, the males and females both look like mallards. So they look like female mallards with really big bills, right? But here, just the colors are really bright. Oh, in the back, look, there's a blue-winged teal, right? Males have this really interesting coloration, but only in spring. And look at it doing some courtship behaviors there. All right, so just you never know what you're going to see come spring. Now, by spring, let's just be honest, we all judge seasons differently. Ducks have actually started thinking of spring now. So the male mallards, which were boring in their coloration most of the summer, they've got their green heads now, and the teals just got it. All right, so for the teals, up through October, they were kind of dull to look at, just kind of mottled gray and brown speckled. But now the males are getting their bright cinnamon heads with the green stripe. So they're going to start courting females now. Like we're thinking about winter. A lot of the ducks are already thinking about spring. Like, hey, if I can get my partner for next spring and arrive at the breeding grounds next spring already with a partner, that just makes my chances much higher of um, mating. So these are green-winged teals. They will be at their brightest in spring, but a lot of them have just started changing now. So they're special, as are the blue-winged teals. Look at that big white stripe on the head. That's only in springtime do they look like that. If you catch them in flight, I think I do at the end here, I will, yeah, you'll catch like some light blue on their wings as well. So a lot of these ducks, the widgeons, the blue-winged teals, the green-winged teals, they don't spend their summer here. They don't lay their eggs here. So spring is the time to see them. Now notice you don't see a whole lot of green behind. It's still kind of cold. All right, so this is like early April, but every season of the year has its own birds to see. So that's a good time to go out. All right, so I'm just going to kind of jump around a little bit. So some birds nest in cavities, and others nest in trees, and then others, like these red-winged blackbirds, they're going to just kind of find some reeds, some cattails or whatever, and try to hide a little nest there. And here are some red-winged blackbirds. So notice, unlike the ducks, all right, you need two parents to feed those, all right, because they are fairly helpless, unlike the ducks, which are able to feed themselves. And by two parents, let me be clear, sometimes both parents are feeding the young. But sometimes, like in red-winged blackbirds, the males are largely guarding the nest while the females are feeding the young. When I say guarding the nest, let me just be clear. Here's a hawk that eats birds, and the red-winged blackbirds are flying at it. Why would you do that? Why would you fly after something bigger than you that eats you? Well, the answer is, if you're going to nest in cattails, the cattails hide your nest and your young, except from above. All right, above, if you can fly over a swamp, you can see where everyone's nests are and everyone's kids are. You like eating birds' eggs, so do so many of these other things. So a lot of birds, they will actively chase away eagles and ospreys and hawks and great blue herons, even though they're like little songbirds, all right? Because the alternative is not to have any kids, all right? Because it would just be too easy to find their kids. So whether it be a bald eagle or an osprey, you'll often see little birds just heckling it and just making its life miserable. And even though these males compete against each other, they hate each other, they're competing for females and territories, the minute a hawk comes through, they all band together, and it's like the four of us are just going to heckle this red-shouldered hawk and get it out of our territory. One interesting thing is, as far as you try to think like a bird, what are the females thinking? Females, at least red-winged blackbirds, they like a nice territory, all right? And when I say that, if there's a male that has like a nice territory, females will go and lay eggs in a nest that they make in his territory, even if he has already 14 other females. So if you look, in a swamp, you'll have some males which won't mate, and then some males which mate a lot, but the females they value the territory. And so when they pick a partner, the fact that, there are other females sharing that partner, as long as they get a territory that ensures their offspring will be successful, they're okay with it. So just telling various stories. Okay. And then it's fun just you go each week and things are just growing so fast. You're like, oh, I didn't see wood duck, ducklings last week, and now I see the wood duck ducklings. Oh, and the Canada geese, they're actually on land feeding, etc. I haven't seen the mute swan cygnets yet. So everyone's on their own time schedule. That you'll see like the young from the species a little earlier than that a species, etc. Flight feathers will come in later. All right, so the young are typically just covered with downy feathers at first. Getting back to the eagles, all right, that they start off tiny, but when birds fledge, they're pretty close to adult size. So think of an eagle, bald eagle, egg, like yay, all right? It can have a wingspan of 6, and if we're in Alaska, especially if it's a female, 8 feet. All right, so some 6.5 feet, but then some eagles up to 7, 7.5, even 8, I think is the record. They have to finish that by June. So these eggs will hatch in March. They have to have a 7-foot wingspan by June. That's a lot of growing. The growth rate of a bald eagle is the fastest growth rate we know of in birds. All right, and so they're just going to be eating like crazy as the parents breed. I see there's something in the chat. Let me just. Oh, thank you, thank you. So someone made a comment. 2 small birds were chasing off a small. Thank you. So there's a lot going on here. Now, here's a nest, and there's siblings growing up in the same nest, but there's competition there. Very often the third won't make it, all right, because the biggest ones get food first. Females are bigger than males, all right, so they'll get fed first. The eggs which were laid first have a couple days growth on the later ones. And so very often if there's a third eaglet, unless it's a really good year, lots of fish get brought to the nest, they might not make it. Notice bald eagles start looking very different, very dark, and they won't start getting streaks of white until the following year. And you'll notice them starting to walk around and flap their wings, because once again, June is when they have to fly, right? And getting to the early part, they're high up in a tree. So here's a big bird, 6, 7-foot wingspan. On a certain day, it's going to take its first jump. All right, so it better be ready. So as summer progresses, you're going to see a lot of them just kind of start flapping their wings and practicing those flight muscles. Now, by the end, they're typically bigger than their dad. All right, so females are bigger, period, up to 25% bigger. But juveniles actually have longer wings. They'll actually get a tiny bit shorter over life. So the male is very often the last one, the smallest one at the nest. So males often aren't allowed to eat at the nest. The minute a male gets there, it's already got birds that are bigger than it, ripping its food away from it. The only way it gets to eat is, by itself somewhere else. Okay. So there were, endless stories to tell and 12 minutes left to tell them. So just kind of going along. The climate is changing, plus the fact that humans are changing habitats, etc. So another reason that we go out is to kind of document this. What are the birds doing? Are they in trouble? Which ones are in more trouble? Like the rusty blackbirds, their numbers are going down fast. All right. Rough grouse numbers are going down fast. Which ones are the ones we worry about most? And then you start seeing weird ones like, what is this one doing here in spring? This is a Florida bird. This is a Georgia bird, the little blue heron. But it's getting warmer. Winters are milder. And as climate changes, so are the birds that we're seeing. So another good thing to go out is we don't know, what we're going to see. Times are changing. Baby little blue herons are white in autumn. We've seen that in Goshen. And so that's weird. We don't expect little blue herons in this part of the country, but we have seen them. And we have seen them recently. And there are just so many stories like the yellow legs. So there's greater yellow legs, lesser yellow legs. They need our area here. They don't nest here. But they will be, some of them came from Argentina. Some of them came from as far south as Tierra del Fuego. And they're going to northern Canada, like some above the Arctic Circle. So just imagine that. A tiny bird is going from the southernmost points of South America to the northernmost parts of North America. It needs rest stops along the way. So here's both the greater yellowlegs, that's the bigger two, and the lesser yellowlegs, hanging out here in Goshen. So Argentina's birds and northern Canada's birds depend on Goshen. Their birds don't get there unless they have stopovers here, just like our birds depend on the Dominican Republic and Guatemala and Georgia and North Carolina, etc. Taking care of birds requires, all of the hemisphere because birds don't recognize their borders. And then, each bird would have its own story. Here's Baltimore Orioles coming back. They are primarily fruit eaters, and so they need to, come back when it's a little bit warmer, when they're actually fruits. Other birds are primarily insect eaters. Some of them are going to fly around feeding on insects. So we get different species of swallow, from the tree swallows to the northern rough-winged swallows to the barn swallows. And I'm not happy with how last spring unfolded, because we have a gazillion of those, all right? And they come and they eat all of the bugs and they raise their young, and it's wonderful. But last spring, if you remember, climate change not only means like a warming pattern in general, but it also means change. Like we're just seeing different weather. Last spring, I'm sure you remember if you can think hard enough, was cold and wet, like a lot of rain, a lot of cold, rainy days. These birds fly eating flying insects. And we just had in spring, just cold, rainy days, not a lot of flying insects. They need the insects for two reasons. Some of them are migrating up to Canada. And the ones, even if they're going to stay here, they just got, here from, the Caribbean or wherever. So they need food. But now they want to lay their eggs and feed their young. And if you have just days and days that are cold and rainy in spring, a lot of these birds aren't going to make it to where they're going migrating. When they get there, they might not have a lot of energy. A lot of their young may not survive. So our changing of the natural world is having very quick effects. That's too fast for birds to react. I don't think a lot of the swallows were very successful in their nesting here last spring. It was just bad weather at the worst time for them. All right, so as we watch the natural world, each season, each story has its own things going on. These tree swallows, they love your bluebird boxes that you set out for bluebirds, but now it's got a tree swallows instead. But some of these, if you kayak on the Delaware, you'll be seeing some of the cavities in mud. That's where some of these swallows will be nesting instead of the artificial. So I'm just kind of, tie up with a couple of them. Then even sparrows. So there's a lot of different kinds of sparrows. And there are some sparrows which we only see here in winter. So if you want to go out birding now, look for the tree sparrows, look for the white crowned sparrows. They're hard to see, but they're good. We have lots of white-throated sparrows. We got the juncos, obviously. These are winter sparrows. Then they go north come spring, but then we get our summer sparrows. Field sparrows, you only see them in summer. Savanna sparrows with their yellow, you only see them during migration. All right, so maybe you don't give second thoughts to sparrows, but just as the seasons change, even sparrows are different. This is also a great time to see owls, all right, because they got babies to feed. And so here it is, they're looking to hunt more. And so your chances of seeing owls at dusk increase. Barbara was here earlier. So once again, shout out to Barb. Thank you so much she was the one who spotted the barred owl on the Goshen hike because we were all looking the other way. And then other than that, you just kind of, watch them grow up. But once again, last summer was super hot and dry. I'm sure you remember. And so here are those mute swan cygnets. We started last year with 6. We ended with 1. This past year we started with 8 and ended with 3. So once again, if you start having hot, dry summers, that's a lot where these swans, which were going to be swimming around and feeding on aquatic plants, all of a sudden, they're like pretty much dry land and really shallow water and really easy for foxes and coyotes and everybody else to get to. Okay. Two last videos, and then I'll start to sum up, I guess. So I said this would be like the birds of spring and summer. So let's just kind of jump to summer. So in July, you can see things like this, and you say, least sandpipers. Wow, were they here? April, May, June, and like, no. Why are they here in July then? And the answer is because they're migrating south for winter. Right?
Stop.
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna, there's some background noise if I can. Because once again, remember those birds going to Argentina? All right, when do you start your Argentina trip? Well, you don't wait till September, all right, because you got a long way. So a lot of these little sandpipers, they're actually going to start their fall migration in July, early August, if they're going to get as far south as they're going. So even here we are, and just like the ducks are already thinking of spring, in the middle of summer, some of the birds are already thinking of autumn. And sometimes it's interesting. So for example, with some of these yellow legs and sandpiper species, females migrate first. Because atypically, very often, like especially with the ducks, the females start to lay their eggs. The eggs are coming close to hatching, and the males say "see ya," and they're not going to take any part in the rearing of the young. But in some species, it's the reverse, where these are the females. They laid their eggs, and they're like, "See ya, I'm done." And then the males are caring for the young. They raise them, and so the females they migrate first. Then once the young birds have left the nest, the males say, my kids are healthy. I've done my job. They then migrate, but the kids can't because they need to eat more before their flight muscles develop. So you could actually get 3 waves of migration: adult females first, adult males second, and then juveniles. Right. So there's that. Towards late summer, I mean, birds always look cool, but if you like the bright colors, here we are in late summer and the males aren't showing off anymore, all right? Because the females have already laid their eggs, right? And so why bother be showy and bright if you're not going to attract a partner? The only thing you would attract is a predator to eat you. So a lot of males then go into what's called eclipse plumage. And so late summer bird watching might not be quite as exciting. A lot of the birds are brownish. Not many are making calls anymore because they're not trying to attract females. So they're not going to like sit on a branch and make as much noise as they can. They're hiding up at the top of the tree in the leaves, and you're not going to see them. Okay. And a lot then have already left their nest. So June is when bald eagles leave the nest. So if you say like, oh, that bald eagle's nest, it's July, let me check on it again. No one's there. All right. So they grew to adult size come June. Sometimes there are teenagers. So teenage birds look a little different. And they often still depend on their parents a little bit, where the parents don't say, okay, you can leave the nest, you're on your own, that there'll be a time where the young are more and more independent, but the adults still feed them a little bit. So the young may hang around with the adults for a while. So, and I've said this before, it's a little insulting, so I don't want to offend anybody. But sometimes when you travel, Virgin Islands are beautiful. Arizona is beautiful. Also a little boring, right? It's just a lot of the same. And like, as far as birds go, like, great birds. But after a while, you're like, okay, I've seen the birds. We really live in a diverse area. Like just really we do. Not only is Orange County diverse in, summer and winter, fall and spring, we have Canada's birds going through. So there's just such a great diversity. There's no bad time of year to go out birding. Very often you'll see different things at different times of year. And this kind of focused on spring and summer. It's still a wonderful time to get out. Even as it gets colder, I say this a lot. I didn't go out, in nature when it got cold. I'm like, I feel like getting cold. But then I would go skiing. And then it dawned on me, like, idiot, like, you know how to dress for cold. Like when you go skiing, you dress because you know it's going to be cold. So if you want to go out in the woods, just dress like you're skiing. So you guys know how to dress. So you can enjoy nature walks, at any time of year. Just very often you have to dress a little differently. I hope you enjoyed the beautiful, diverse area that we have. I was out, what was it, yesterday? I didn't see all that many birds. But there was a porcupine so close I could have touched it. So I got great video that I'll be posting soon. So you never know what you're going to see in the natural world. So I hope you can get out. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. If you are interested in doing more of this, like I said, there are so many great organizations, Audubon, the Bashakil. Give me your name and your email. I'll put you on their mailing list so you'll be told of presentations, etc. We have calendars. The only thing that we ask is if you're a member of Bashakil or Audubon, take a calendar. If you want to leave a donation, it's always appreciated. They do cost $8 to print, but take a calendar. If you want to sign up and become a member, I have membership forms there, and then take a calendar as part of that. Otherwise, students, good luck on your exams and your finals coming up. Everyone have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Grace.
Thanks. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you, you too.
Bye.
It's a juvenile little eagle.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm standing there and my what is this?
That is,
That's
wow,
gorgeous, isn't it?
that's gorgeous. A great egret?
No, the little one, the
Oh,
small.
little blue. Oh,
Little
okay.
blue.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
Unbelievable. It's so
I've never seen it look like that.
cute, but
Oh, that's great. That's great. Hey, oh, and by the way, I know some of you may require some sort of proof, like a picture or a signature or whatever. So if that's the case, come on up. I have to stop recording